Good evening. Come on, I need some. I'm sorry, I'm not. Y'all not feeling my energy real quick. Hold on a second. Good evening. All right. My name is Andre Adams, and I serve as the director here at 80 Bruce Religion Center. On behalf of our department, our staff, our campus ministers, it's with great honor that we welcome all of you in attendance and those joining virtually for today's discussion, Crosses and Turntables, Christianity's Influence on Hip-Hop Culture. If this is your first time visiting with us, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. 80 Bruce Religion Center aims to be a department and a building where collaborations, customer service, discovery, and community all come together in one place. We are grateful to collaborate with African American Studies today, and we look forward to future opportunities. We hope that you felt welcomed with open arms and our customer service met or exceeded your expectations. We hope that you discover something new in today's discussion, prompting you to explore more ways to engage and learn. And finally, we hope that you find community within this space, a community where we appreciate our different faiths and cultures and learn from one another. Our speaker series aims to celebrate spiritual diversity by offering the University of Houston community and the greater Houston community a unique opportunity to delve into conversations around faith, religion, spirituality, and a framework not often explored. Tonight, our panelists will be diving into an intriguing intersection of Christianity and hip-hop, an exploration that promises to unravel layers of influence, inspiration, and innovation. So again, thank you for being here with us this evening, and at this time, I would like to introduce from the Department of African American Studies, Dr. Tara T. Green, Chair and Class Distinguished Professor.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hello. This is a great opportunity for us to collaborate with the Bruce Center. So thank you so much, Andre. And I am the department chair, but I always like to acknowledge the great staff members that have certain appointments where they can go out and do the work that I can't do because I have limited time. So I have a wonderful staff. And so then I will acknowledge Mr. Christopher Knight and, of course, Dr. Danae Muhammad Murphy. She knows I struggle sometimes with getting all of her last names in the right order. So I also want to acknowledge that I see my advisory board, student advisory board here, at least 3 members. Hello. And another staff member, Jasmine Grant, and one of our new faculty members, Dr. Amina Shakur. So thank you all and all of you for your support of this evening's conversation, which promises to be a great one. And it will be moderated by someone who will join us as an adjunct. If you are a student and you are not taking the hip-hop class, raise your hand. Dr. Christopher Cruz Control Williams, who is a professor at Houston Community College. Dr. Christopher Williams, of course I think of the singer every time I hear that name, child of the 90s, has honed his skills in pedagogy, fostering student engagement, and driving academic success. His interdisciplinary approach to teaching and commitment to fostering a diverse, inclusive learning environment aligns seamlessly with the ethos of the discipline of African American Studies. Dr. Williams is the CEO and president of BPM Music and Sports Group, LLC, and VP of Sales and Marketing at Music World Entertainment. His professional experience, coupled with his academic accomplishments, brings a unique and practical perspective to the classroom, bringing theory with real-world applications. His work is not just theoretical, as he's demonstrated in his quality of work at HCC, where he has successfully facilitated over 100 internships by establishing productive relationships with industry professionals. Please welcome our moderator, Dr. Christopher Cruise Control Williams.
How is it? How is everybody doing? Great, good. So I forgot I did all that, but first off, want to thank you all for having me moderate. I really appreciate this. But even furthermore, I'm privileged to sit on this panel with some great minds that has contributed to the entertainment industry, and great visionaries that all are sitting on this panel today. Some have come from far and near, but what I would like to do is first allow them to introduce themselves. That's a good Jay-Z verse. So to my left, I'm gonna go ahead and just pass the mic, and you all just go ahead and introduce yourself one at a time. And I think it's one there, but you can use this one.
How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you to Brother Knight and the entire staff and Brother Chris for just allowing me to grace the stage with some very successful and talented people. My name is Lucius Hoskins. I am a music producer, songwriter, and I've been blessed to be able to work with a lot of people that I didn't, that I dreamed of working with, and so I'm fortunate and I'm grateful to be able to do that, and yeah, glad to be here.
What's up, y'all? I am Nate Robinson. I am a Houston native. I got to start with that. I'm from South Park, but I live in Atlanta. I've been in Atlanta for a good while, and I'm a music professional, meaning I do everything from A to Z. So, like, most of my time is spent doing, musician things, producer things, A&R things, like pretty much you name it. I'm gonna be in there somewhere. Yeah. So that's me. That's what I do.
Testing. All right, giving out of the God who is the head of my life.
So look, I told her I was gonna put her on the back pew back there, but go ahead.
I'm Dr. Lady Taze Foster. I'm an edutainer, which essentially is an educator and an entertainer. I've done both of those, lived in both of those worlds for the last 20 years. I also do counseling, and I'm a strategic consultant. I'm just really, really happy to be here and to be able to do likewise, sit among some very incredible people, and also serve alongside the staff and producers of this event at University of Houston. Thank each of you for being here.
All right. My name is Jason Woods. I also go by Flash Gordon Parks. I'm an ethnomusicologist, avid record collector, purveyor of Houston music culture. I'm also serving as chairman of the board for the Houston Music Advisory Board, which was just created through the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. And part of what I do on a daily basis is just try to educate myself on the rich musical history of this city.
Hey, it's complicated. My name's Varion Howard, AKA Seven the Poet. I am the host and CEO of one of the longest running poetry spots in the country, Poetry Lounge Houston, which has been in business for 25 years. I'm a graduate of Prairie View A&M University. You all should applaud, but okay, it's okay. I have a master's in social work. I am a certified counselor, and I go to work every day to show the kids and expose the kids to futures and possibilities that they may not be aware of.
Awesome. Y'all give our panelists a round of applause. So let's go ahead and jump into this topic right now, in the influence of Christianity in hip hop. And I think before we really jump into that, we've been hearing, I don't know if any of you all have been following the Christian hip hop artist D1 Music. He's been in a whole lot of animosity with like Meek Mill and Rick Ross and their conversations and conveying the messages of what they're conveying. So I'm going to ask this first question, and whoever want to take it. First off, can we define what is hip-hop first? Can we define hip-hop? You want to take that, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hip hop is not just the music, but it's a way of life. We know the principles of hip hop were MCing, DJing, breaking, and graffiti. So, but in that spirit of what hip hop evolved into, because I feel like the pioneers or the forefathers didn't call it hip hop at the time. It was just something they did. And if you are of a certain age, I mean, we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop this year on August 11th. But there's evidence of it tracing back further than that. But in that vein, I'm sure all of us on the panel here grew up in a culture of doing things because that's just the way you did it, you know. And I think that's the essence of hip hop. Just how you approach it, how you look at it, and those expressions that I named, the 4 elements, that's just how you express what is already in us.
So, so can hip hop rap music be used as a perfect capsule to carry the message of gospel and biblical principles in this space?
I'll jump in and add on there. I think to answer your question, yes, and an extension of what hip hop is also an artistic expression, and it's a language, right? And so if we talk about the diversity of language and the diversity of artistic expression, then there's your caveat to hip hop being able to be a secondary language to religion, and also another expression to who we are as individuals, and we all get to decide that and determine that in these days and age, right? So,
when you ask the question, when you ask the question at first, and I kind of, hey Doc. When you asked the question at first, my first answer was creativity, because that's all that it is about. The graffiti, creativity. The MCing, creativity. The B-boy, the key component to the B-boy was original style, and the key component to the MCing part was original style, creativity, period. I think that we, as first generation hip hop, I think what we have a problem with now is the cookie cutter method. There's no creativity. It is very much A, B, C to get this result. It is almost a recipe for it to success. And we watch those MCs, B-boys, graffiti artists still struggle to be accepted, to have mainstream success, while we see others who are not as talented simply, well, I won't say not as talented, but they're willing to dumb it down for the machine to attain a certain level of success. And I think that is totally in conflict with what hip hop actually is.
Nate, you wanna take it?
So your question, if I remember correctly, you asked if it was the perfect capsule for the gospel. Is that right? To carry the message.
Message, yes.
So I feel like, I mean, I've always felt like this because I grew up playing drums in church, right? And I grew up in a church where, like, particularly when I was young, the music in church was like, the music department was on fire. It was like real progressive and, you know. So at the time, I used to look at it like, man, this is like, not that it's carrying the church, but it's operating as a, like you said, like a capsule, right? But so to answer your question, I don't know if it's the perfect capsule, but I think it's the perfect like conduit. It's the perfect like bridge. You know what I mean? I think the perfect capsule is still like teaching somebody, you know, being able to expound on things and like really get into like teaching the word. But to get somebody who, generally speaking, wouldn't go to church, like a good way to bridge that is like hip hop, and it's going to convey, like, good Christian hip hop is going to convey a message. You know what I'm saying? But it's not necessarily sermons or like that kind of teaching. It's more an expression, and if it works to make you say, man, maybe I want to learn more, then I think it's perfect for that. You know what I'm saying?
We want to welcome Dr. Keisha to the stage. How are you? Good. You okay now? Well, we're glad to have you. But I have a question for you. We just defined hip hop, right? Can you define Christianity from your perspective?
Good evening. Please pardon my tardiness. You know what Houston weather and rain and all the extra is about. So thank you for being patient and allowing me to be here. Christianity, the word itself, came out of a context where there were people who walked like, acted like, follow the ways of Jesus Christ. And they were first called Christians, like little Christ, Christians, because they had these mannerisms and ways and conversation and values that reminded others. And in the context of the first word, it was not something that people would have embraced because it was a bit derogatory. It wasn't a cute word. And so, yeah, it was like, oh, you little Christians. There was a little attitude behind that because they were walking like Christ. They were living like Christ. Something about these people was different than the others. So they called them, oh, you trying to be a little Jesus, a little Christ. So that's the context it comes from. But where we now have it, it is the same in essence. But it's deeper out of a very personal, intentional relationship whereby your faith in Jesus Christ and that work which was finished through him at Calvary is now the basis of your faith and salvation, and then also your lifestyle, so that others who would also see, oh, something about you is different, something about your way, your values, the way you operate, the way you ultimately care for others, especially and most importantly first, among other believers. The love ethic of Christians set them apart, because that's why Jesus said they'll know you're my disciples by the love you have for one another. They'll know that you are the ones who are disciplining your lives to follow after me because you act differently towards others, and your way of understanding your worldview is completely different than what the world system has for you. So Christianity is that for me.
So, how I'm going to ask this question? I'm gonna refer back to this whole D1 issue, D1 music, in saying that how the behaviors, the teachings, the words, the lyrics that are coming out of a lot of the commercial artists' mouth right now is contradicting to the Christian lifestyle, right? How do we navigate? How does the hip hop artist navigate through that space to convey the right message and still maintain their level of spirituality? To maintain their level of spirituality as they're conveying the messages that they're conveying, the violence, the killing, these type of things. But how do they maintain their lifestyle and they're conveying that kind of message? How does that work?
So I think that boils down to an integrity thing, a character thing, and I think essentially if you have a personal relationship with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, then I don't think we can. We should, because we can. I don't think we should allow others to influence how we walk like him. So that would be my answer to that. I also just want to go back, if I can. And I was listening to everybody's answer, and it kind of just put me into, just made me think about, so my degree is in music. One of the things, but I'm also, like Nate, I grew up in church. My father's a pastor. So the golden years of hip-hop, I believe, was 1984 to 97. So for me, I was born in 79. So I don't remember anything, I don't know if anybody else does, before like 5 years old. For me, that's kind of when I start remembering things. So I can't remember what happened when I was 4. I don't think so. So from 5 years old till I graduated in 97. And so my formative years were the golden years of hip-hop. So basically what I'm saying is, as far back as I can remember, my understanding and what I saw outside of the church was a lifestyle and a culture that basically shaped me. So going back to what I was saying, hearing everybody's answers, I think about when I was in college, I had to learn and study over 70 different composers. One of the composers that we had to learn about, his name was Antoine Dvorak. Y'all look him up when y'all can. He was a Bohemian man. What the Bohemian people did, it's modern day Czech. What they did was they were people who really studied folk music. Folk music is music that was birthed out of the land. And so Antoine Dvorak would go around the world and study folk music of wherever he was. He came here in 20-something to work at a university in New York. And when he got here, he said, why are y'all studying, why are y'all calling these songs that aren't folk music? Why are y'all calling Old MacDonald Had a Farm folk music? The folk music of this land should be, 1, Native American music. 2, after that would be spirituals, gospel music, jazz, rock and roll. All that stuff was birthed out of the land. Not only that, hip-hop. It was created here. And so hearing everybody's answers, it just put me back in that place, because what I look at, or what I believe hip-hop is, along with what everybody else said, I believe it's a culture. It's something that was created here out of the struggle, out of the land, out of the things that happen in this land. For me, my mother turned to crack cocaine when I was a kid. And so my experience, it aligned with what a lot of things that were being said in the songs. I understood it because it was my life. And then on the flip side, I would go to church and play drums or play guitar or whatever I was playing, and I would understand music from a different perspective, but I would couple that with how hip-hop was merging with R&B at the time. So you had Jodeci and you had Guy, and so I understood it from a different perspective because it was a way of life for me. So I don't know if I made sense with all of that, but at the end of the day, I understand hip-hop to be a culture.
I think to try to answer the question, as far as spirituality and those guys are concerned, I think with them and their success now, I think it's just another day at the office. I think we all have been in professional situations where we may not necessarily agree with the policies of the company, but we're not going to miss work because we're trying to get to the bag. You know what I mean? And let's face it, these guys that the D1 are addressing, he's spot on. He has a point. We're not talking about how many turkeys you gave away, bro. We're not talking about how many bikes you show up with at Christmas time. We're talking about the fact that the people you just bought the bikes for just heard your new album, and you just talked about how many chickens or birds or whatever, flamingos or whatever you just got across the water, and now they want to see some of that success, so now they trying to go do that. Even with the, I told somebody where the word bitch is concerned, we did that. We cannot say we speak things into existence on one hand and then act like we did not on the other. I remember, we all remember, well, they may not, but I know this panel remembers when radio was very much censored, and you could not say those kinds of things. We remember the entire explicit content sticker exchange between the federal courts and the artists because you could not get away with saying some of those things. We pushed for that. That's one of the things that made the inner city ghettos embrace hip hop, the rebelliousness of it. And it was the rebelliousness of the streets. A lot of our street code in hip hop is equivalent to what you see in old school Westerns. We were the outlaws. We still celebrate that. Will Smith is going through what he's going through right now because he was the sheriff, Wild Wild West. No way would Tupac be big. None of those people would be disrespected because there was an element or an air, whether it was true or false, that came with them that you just knew better. So as far as these guys' spirituality, they will throw it out there in the rap. Is there a heaven for a gangster? No, but it's catchy. You know what I mean? So I think it's two different things because let's be honest. If these guys were operating with this much level of criminal enterprise, they would be locked up. Unless they're Donald Trump.
Nate, you had something?
Oh, no, he nailed it. He nailed it.
I think this, you got something to say, Dr. Timmie? Go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I'll just add a couple things, 3 things that stand out to me about your question and also some of your responses. I think one thing is that we're in an era in America and in the world where people get to identify how they choose to, and I said that earlier, but I think that's even the same with religion. I think that people are designing their own religions, putting their own names to them, and they're identifying religiously how they choose to. That is the culture of today's society. So I think there's that one point. I think the other point is that when you're talking about hip-hop and you're talking about religion or spirituality, when you're talking about hip-hop and religion and spirituality, I think there's a responsibility that we as messengers, are those who choose to be messengers and or are categorized as messengers, right? There's a huge responsibility that we have to acknowledge. And I know for me, I do a lot of public speaking, and I was recently invited to DC to speak at a couple of churches. And it was funny because when I got there, they're like, well, who are you, a pastor? The congregation wanted to know what my role was. And I'm really just the messenger. I'm a teacher and I'm a messenger. And I use hip hop and spoken word and poetry to convey my message. After a couple times working with this church, they asked me to extend my work in the youth department. And I had to really think about what that would mean to my level of responsibility, not just to the young people, but also to my God in the way that I practice. And I had to decline one of the particular titles that they wanted to give me because I understand the responsibility. And I think the third thing is that I kind of forgot it. But anyways, the conversation's getting good. If I remember, I'll swing it back around.
So I think this is a good time. You have something for us, don't you? I think you should go ahead and do that for us real quick.
What had happened was I was given the gift of word by wanting to participate in the activities of the elders and older people in my household. That pastime was Scrabble, and I was the dictionary man at 4. So I had to be able to read because my grandfather didn't always play things that were words, and my grandmother was going to call him out every time. So that's how I became versed with the words. Well, when hip-hop started to emerge, I did quite a bit of writing there, and what happened was, some would say that my writing was a bit advanced where the boom bap was concerned, and I think that was just a regional thing, Flash, but we won't get into that. Fast forward, I'm an adult. I've developed these writing skills. I have a relationship with the Lord God, Christ our Savior. I have a relationship with the church, and I have a relationship with hip-hop, and I have a relationship with the streets, and I have a commitment to the children. So I get a phone call, and the phone call is to write a poem for Easter. But I'm not a scripture quoter like that. I don't necessarily know how that's supposed to go. I do my homework, get into the piece. I consider that there will be elders there on Easter, but there also will be a significant amount of children. How do I make this something for everybody? So I did a piece that chronicles the life of Christ from birth to crucifixion. It's called the Jesus piece, and this is how it goes. My father sent me here through a virgin's womb, an intimate project of the master architect. By his hands I was personally groomed. On the night of my birth, 3 kings brought gifts to my home, and the brightest star in the sky is known as my birthstone. I was born to be great. Bright future, dark fate. I am the light of the world, I am love, but the dark hearts of men harbor hate. And the church and state sent their soldiers to come get me, betrayed by the same people sitting at the table with me. Haters. You know what they say, they come a dime a dozen. Yeah, it's a real popular picture of me out there having dinner with a dozen of them. I love Peter like a play cousin, and I told Peter that night, Peter, you would deny me before the cock crows thrice. Well, the next thing I know, that chicken must have crowed. Roman soldiers over my shoulder, let's get this show on the road. One disciple jumped up and cut a soldier's ear off, down to the wax. One more miracle before I leave, let me put this man's ear back. Now they got my hands tied up, suppressed and subdued. And I'm thinking to myself, man, how rude is this dude. I'm the same one that fed 5,000 a multitude, 2 fish, 5 loaves. I'm the original Hove. And I don't need Don Perignon, Cristal, or Casa Amigos to shine. My daddy makes it rain. I turn the water into wine. and you stand here with your soldiers with ill intent. I could call on 12 legions of angels to deliver me from this nonsense, but yet not my will, but yes, God, your will. And on that note, let his will be fulfilled. Let these men go. I'm the one you want to kill. I could have stopped you with one of my one-liners like, peace be still, but I'm the Prince of Peace. And I'll be the Prince of Peace forevermore. This is my walk. This is what I came here for. Even old Satan couldn't get me with temptation. I passed all of his tests. I am not enslaved by the limitations of the flesh. A fisher of men. Tell the fishermen to cast their nets. The deeper the water gets, the deeper the odds. The deeper your relationship with God, and my relationship is deep. Deep is my faith, which is deeper than your hate. Deeper than any crown of thorns can penetrate. And if you need an example of deep here, I'll demonstrate. I walked on water, withered the fig tree, told the mountain, be taken up and cast into the sea. I can calm the storm. Nothing is impossible when I pray. I command the wind and the waters, and even they obey. Another day at the office, God's business, and I take the family business serious. On my off days, I cast out demons and unclean spirits. I am the great I am, the Lamb of God, bright and morning star in the midst of madness. Wonderful counselor, divine advocate. Go and ask Lazarus. I am the resurrection, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the one they crucified. But he who lives and believes in me will never die. That's God's promise. I am the guarantor. This is my walk. This is what I came here for. So continue with your sticks and stones. Continue with your lashes. We triumph. We overcome. We arise from the ashes. I heal the deaf. I heal the sick. I heal the mute. I heal blindness. Kill me with your hate. I'll kill you with kindness. You're looking at heaven's finest, Emmanuel, the rock, the Alpha and Omega. This is why I'm hot, and I carry my cross to Calvary for the world and its sins. Tell Mary not to weep. This is not how the story ends. Tell Mary not to weep. Tell Martha not to moan. In 3 days, roll back the stone. I'm gone.
Powerful, brother. Powerful. I have a couple of more questions, and then we're probably going to open up the floor for any questions that you all may have. But I want to point this question out to Flash. Flash, you've been very intricate in cultivating the music scene here, especially from a historian's perspective. How has the Southern hip hop, more so Houston hip hop, how have you seen it just really transform communities here within the city of Houston?
I mean, Houston hip hop is so unique because it's more diverse than people probably give it credit for. Of course, the notoriety leans towards, the SUCs, the Swisher houses, because they had the biggest impact worldwide. But that's not to say that, quote unquote, underground hip hop of the late 80s, early 90s wasn't as influential as the Ghetto Boys, breaking through to New York. There were a lot of producers and people that, aren't household names, producers like Crazy C, who, if you know, but he was a large part of breaking a lot of East Coast records and West Coast records and a lot of things outside of Texas. They would call Crazy C to do remixes. So Wu-Tang being accepted in the South is mainly because of Crazy C doing the remix for Method Man, putting a Southern twang on it. And I say that to say that's a perfect example of pulling communities together. Houston is definitely responsible for a lot of the success of the Bad Boys and the Death Row records, because those records didn't really sell outside of New York except in places like Houston, giving it the approval. Then later on, other parts of the South latched on to it to accept it. So Houston has been very intricate in building communities. Whether those communities cross-pollinate and intersect, that's a different story. But there are communities within all of those different spaces or silos, which I mentioned. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, DJ Premier was born in Houston, and not only that, a lot of his success. I mean, of course, he went to Prairie View, where his parents were professors, but a lot of his skills were built in Houston. Like he worked at Soundwaves on Main. It was people like Carlos Garza, also known as DJ Styles, who had developed relationships with New York labels like Wild Pitch to plug Premier to even get that opportunity, even though he had family in New York. But it was that Houston connection that put him in position to be responsible for a lot of the classic 90s hip hop. Houston is definitely has his fingerprints on it.
Anybody have something else they want to add to that?
Couple things. One, there's a period, probably, I don't know, maybe like 2010, really until now, where it's hard to listen to any music that is like, you know, in the mainstream without being able to identify some kind of Houston influence. Either a lyric is gonna be screwed, or they'll make some kind of reference, or I mean, just even like the slang, you know what I mean? Like then, I mean, first I started hearing it. I mean, you hear it in Jay-Z's music, which, you know, there's a natural, you know, there's a natural bridge there because his wife. But I mean, it just trickles down. Like everybody has some sort of reference. You know what I mean? Another thing that I want to add is, you know, locally, everybody has their thing. You know, LA, they do their thing. New York, they do their thing. In Houston, one of the things that we do is like the freestyle culture, right? And just so y'all know, like this dude, like I heard, I was a freshman at Prairie View, and I mean y'all just heard what he can do like in that realm. But I've heard this dude freestyle like the most amazing freestyle I've ever heard, and that's like ever heard anybody, and that's like that's a Houston thing. It's a cultural thing, and it's a really hard thing to do because I used to try to do it, and I can't get like 3 bars out. You know what I mean? So nah, like the man is a wordsmith. He's not lying. But that's that also just, you know, it ties into the Houston cultural hip hop thing, like, and it influences and infects everything at this point.
One of the things I want to point out about Houston culture and its influence, and it came from the SUC, is our affinity for cars. You know, what we do to the cars with the swangers, the super pokers. People don't really know what a real set of 84s look like, you know. But it's funny to go to other cities and see our influence. Like, we have a very strong, I know Flash spoke about our relationship with the East Coast. We also have a very strong bond with the West Coast, you know, and us being first generation, we all, and I spoke about the cookie cutter thing earlier, where, remember, it was called biting. You didn't steal anybody's style or take a piece of nothing that they did, because that was biting and that was an offense. I never will forget having a real big issue with Snoop. Not personally, like I ain't say it to his face, but I was upset, but because I knew all that big baby, I knew where that came from. That came from Missouri City. The mayor, 3-2. That was his style, and it wasn't later into hip hop that Snoop talked about when he got that from 3-2, and then to hear Jay-Z talk about how he had early UGK records, and then he finally got to work with them. It's wild, but yeah, Houston has always had a lot of influence where hip-hop is concerned.
And I just want to add to that, I'm not from Houston. I'm actually from Michigan. But so growing up in Michigan, my understanding and my exposure to Houston was the Ghetto Boys. And in the 80s, that was like, man, you know, Bushwick Bill, I was fascinated by this little bitty dude who was rapping like he was rapping and, you know, whatever. So, and we just laughed at that. But when I got here, or just even with that, I understood who Jay Prince was. And so when I moved here and I later became one of his producers, I learned that there would be no Puffy, there would be no Master P, there would be no Suge Knight if there was no Jay Prince. And so I think, you know, just talking about this topic, we can't overlook his impact. And also, I mean, even now, you know, who I would dare say is the biggest rapper right now in the world in terms of notoriety and even sales, and I would say Drake. But even when Drake, in his songs, you hear about Houston. You hear about his Houston experience and his connection to Houston. So yeah, I would say that Houston has a huge impact in hip hop.
You have something, Dr.
I'm going to jump in just for the purpose of thinking about a global perspective, because you all have been speaking specifically about Houston. And I think that language is so important, and the capsule you talked about earlier carries over into other cultures. And we see the influence of hip hop in places where they may not know the root being here, but the style, the culture of hip hop is in places that you probably wouldn't even expect because of how media has marketed it and made it part of capitalism and all of that. But I bring it up because I think culture and words carry meaning and ideas and concepts that shape minds and then shape individuals and families and eventually shape other cultures. And I believe that from the Christian perspective or the theological or the spiritual perspective, I just wanted to add that there are so many ways, because Houston is the most diverse city in the U.S., because Houston has so many places and spaces and people who move through this city. I don't want us to lose the fact that all of that you just discussed, the roots, have a profound effect on places we might not even realize and bring into this conversation. And that, to me, is also important to highlight as we talk about hip-hop being a conduit or a capsule with potential to impact the world in ways that we probably don't give full attention to, because there are people quoting things that they will never fully understand and adopting a culture and a way and a swag. They don't really fully understand it. But that, to me, is the power of putting this voice, these words, this meaning, these concepts in music. Because when we are, from our very, very, very earliest years, we learn through music. We learned our ABCs to tune. We learn so many things that if we go back to that, there's something that is innately in us that likes the rhythm and the movement. And when we get to matching that with the power that words can do to shape people and lives, I just want us to make sure that what starts here is great and giving the credit to those, you know, to whom credit is due. But there's so much beyond Houston, beyond the East Coast and the West Coast, that hip hop is touching, which is why I would love for those who are able to use theologically sound words to shape, because what you don't pick up when you read a Bible, or if you never think about it, there's something that will stay with you because it had the power to impact you. And those are seeds that are planted that could, we will never know until eternity what could come from it.
And I think that's a great closing statement. I want you all to give our panel a round of applause, please. I would like to open up the floor for any questions. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I would not, I don't feel confident enough to try to predict that. And I say that because as a first generation hip hop head, I remember when mainstream radio would proudly advertise no rap radio. They were excited about not playing it. And to turn on those same stations and hear hip hop is nostalgic, personally, sometimes upsetting, because my mother told me I couldn't really just walk around the house saying, well, my mind, my money, my money. You can't say that. And now we have Sexy Red. I hope she finds Jesus. I hope, terrible. So I don't know 50 years from now. I'll say this, in retrospect, some of us, first generation hip hop men, we're struggling with the being taught and indoctrinated into being gangster and being hard. Now it's really not that season anymore. And people still wearing Dickies and Lokes. So we still struggling with the past. 50 years in the future, I just don't know. But good luck, you'll be there.
You silly. Let me add to that, to the last part of what you asked about, like the spirituality component. For the last like 12, 13 years or so, I've been working in that genre, and it's gone from, I work with Lecrae. I don't know if you're familiar with Lecrae, but it's gone from when they first tried to hire me, I turned them down because when he called me, I was like, nah, I'm good because Christian rap is whack. And I just wasn't gonna do it. My resume at that point was starting to build kind of nice. I wasn't about to ruin my resume and go do some Christian hip hop. So for the last 12, 13 years ago or so, I've kind of had a cool front seat to watch this whole thing grow and change and become real quality music and now there's a whole younger generation now that's coming in that's taking it to the next level. It's becoming real art. You know what I mean? Real art with a real message. So to answer that part of it, I feel encouraged that there's going to be more voices that that can actually speak to the things that we really need to hear, and they can do it in a way that's dope, that'll be globally accepted, not in a way that's that's corny or that's for a youth group. You know what I'm saying? So I feel good about that. But I also agree with Varion. It's the Wild Wild West out here, so good luck.
What I want to say as it relates to your question is your generation has a responsibility. We are, I like the way Seven says it, first generation. So we understand the beginning, where it comes from, where it starts. I, like him, I'm not totally happy with what I think it looks like, but I'm not God. So what I will say is that your generation has a responsibility, and with anything that you become a part of, study it, understand it, do the history so that you are careful and you're responsible with what you are handling. And I say that because if you look at the other genres that were birthed in this land and you see where they were and where they are, take jazz. Most of the people that were students of that, I'm not sure they would be happy with where it is right now. It's almost becoming a lost art. I would even say as a gospel producer that gospel is somewhat being gentrified. You have taken the organ out of the church and replaced it with an acoustic guitar. And so I look at that as a gentrification type of thing. And so not to prolong it, but just as a student of hip hop, your generation will be here then, and it how you handle it determines where it's going to be.
I'll jump in really quick. A couple things come to mind for me. Technology. We've already seen an AI artist be signed who appeared to be black but was designed by a white man, and that was very controversial. Also, we're seeing how AI is now replicating voices and images, and we've seen this whole image piece where Nicki Minaj did a whole piece that she was not a part of. Her image was replicated, her voice was replicated. That also is very controversial. However, it is the future of our existence, right? So the technology piece. I'll also say I had the fortune to spend the West Coast side of tour with Wu-Tang on the 50-year anniversary with Nas and De La Soul, and got to be a part of the end of that last tour, and that was really encouraging. I mean, just to see the brothers, you know, who have brought, like you said, this first generation of hip hop to the forefront. Hip hop is absolutely not dead. It is absolutely reinventing itself. And even some of the pioneers, they were just amazing, and they were miraculous, and it was just miracle. It was, I mean, I'm almost without words from that. And so keeping kind of those things in line, I think are really important things to talk about the future. And then I'll say this last piece, which was what I forgot. I remember now. And it ties to the future of hip hop. Like, what's in you will come out. So that's biblical. So as we talk about artists and the relationship with hip hop and religion, whatever is inside of you biblically comes out, and that we see today happen from, you know, technology, new inventions, young people. Oh my God, they are changing the world. And so 50 plus years for hip hop and religion, I see there being a long, extensive future that incorporates technology.
So my husband told me I should not say what I'm about to say. You're right. You're right. And then when I told him why I was going to say it, he said, okay, then. All right. The reason why I'm going to say this is because there was a time, have you ever heard the bubblegum hip hop? Have you ever heard that phrase described? Right. Exactly. Right. See, I know I was telling him. Well, I was trying to tell him, you know, that's what I was first introduced to. It was real sweet, candy, the bubblegum, the soft stuff, right? The reason why I bring that up is because one of the things that I feel, to your point, sis, let me get to it. One of the things I feel that made hip hop so very important in the beginning and now is because of the struggle and the anger and the communication of what was not being heard in spaces where we had to get it out. And those messages needed to get out, and it caught the attention of people that it needed to be heard, right? Seven just asked me, were there ever any concerts like at the stadiums? Does anybody remember Cross Movement or anything? Y'all, okay. So those were the only people that I remember ever had major concerts. But those brothers, in my opinion, were of the top tier of Christian rappers, not the hokey stuff like you say, because it was real. It was rough. It was rough in the beginning. But the reason why they stood out to me is because what I read about them is because they went to seminary so that they could rap about things that were not just theologically sound, but they wanted to give context and really be sharp. The reason why I bring this up is because I would hope, especially based on the last 4 years, we've seen so much unrest arise again. We've seen so many ways that we need to be speaking out about things that are not right. And we don't necessarily have to do it in a context that will lead to more violence, because I believe any and everything in the earth, there's nothing new under the sun. if you want to get to some violence and talk about what justice is, talk about how things need to be made right, crooked places made straight, rough places made smooth, give us new language to talk about that. Seven said, I'm not going, I wasn't quoting scripture, or whatever, but he gave a whole lot of Bible in that speech. He was spitting much word. And I believe, but I believe for the future of hip hop, there are people who are hungry for that edge. They are hungry for that truth that's so raw, that will be in the face of the powers that need to be addressed. And not necessarily that we want to tear each other down, but there's a way to even come at it with the scripture. And I would hope, I like these, I would never begin to try to predict or prophesy what is going to happen in 50 years. I would only pray that there are some people like you and others who are willing to go to the scandalous parts of the text and talk about how it applies to 2020, 2050. I would hope there are people who are willing to be radical and dangerous with speaking truth to power. And you don't have to tear each other down to do it. You can lift up and give voice to things that some people just can't articulate, and show those who may feel like their only way is to say it this way. No, you have some more powerful ways to say it. You have some other words. You have some other movement. You have some beats that you can put behind it. And again, we learn so much through music from the very beginning of our lives that it'll stay with them. And when you least expect it, those things can help them also articulate what they've never been able to. And hopefully that will continue the movement and take it even higher.
I have a saying, you can't hate it and celebrate it. Crosses and turntables. Is that the correct name? Yeah. Crosses and turntables. I sat here and as I listened and began to go over what we were talking about, I realized how hip-hop Jesus was. He was a disruptor. And that is exactly what hip-hop did, has done, and continues to do. Disrupt. It shakes up and it forces you to look at things. Like, for example, even going back to the whole Sexy Red thing, we're not going to. It's disruptive. It's disruptive. I dare not play it for my mother. She probably would go see Jesus immediately right there. But it's disruptive. But we cannot act like there's not a subset of that going on in our culture. You know what I'm saying? To quote an MC, one of my favorites, Black Thought of the Roots, says, I never hold a cordless or stand reportless. The MC's job was the crowd, basically the crowd, the party, to prove that he or she was the most fierce at it, but mostly to report the state, the current state of the society. And I challenge all MCs and poets out there that might get this recording. I want to see what they got to say about this war, because it is very biblical. It is so biblical what is happening right now that it is frightening to have read that so many years ago and know that that text existed before anybody in this room was born, and to watch it come into fruition. I would love to see some MCs really get into what's going on and tackle it. There are so many angles that I would love for them to teach, because this is what I learned. This is what I learned as an educator, as an MC, and as a poet. It's something about the pattern. Everything is on beat. You know how we changing the words now? We say, oh, well, we're going to just give it to the universe. Oh, a decade ago, the universe was God, but, do what you want to with that. we just change the words, but it's still the same thing. If everything is vibration and everything is tempo and everything has a beat like our hearts, everything is on time, nothing leaves you when you put it in a certain time, including words. And on that note, I close.
We all chiming in on the one question. I know the other people is like, but to close, to your point too, and I know you'll say something before you end. One thing is, as an MC, I can't get a commission like that and not add voice to it. So I definitely gonna share a piece on that right here today. That's gonna be my closing. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor of the night, Prolific Success Events and Consulting, prolificsuccessllc.com, who sponsored my time here tonight. There's some flyers that are on the table as well. I encourage everyone who's in the room to check it out. And then a shout out to the online community and the people in the classrooms and the folks who'll be able to see this after. Please check out prolificsuccessllc.com to see about the people who get to support the visuals you get to see. But my closing piece, I gotta do a piece, man. Can I do a piece for y'all? Is that okay? I don't know. They sound like that ain't okay. But you sound like it ain't okay. But nah, I just want to do this piece for you real quick. If I had it my way, everybody would get paid. I reissue license, everybody could switch lanes. I put legal rights for every ball of the cocaine. I would write a book, survive the ghetto for 10 days. Now look at the picture and seeing the privilege. Street chick with credentials still considered the misfit. A ribbon in the skies, but they swear we missed it. I hid under the skies, but I'm ready to risk it. Flip this, it's hard to face the truth because I live this. A double life, a dual life, a traffic in prison. Look at my eyes, the paralyzed, I hold the tears back because my people be the chosen ones to hold me right back. Fact is, sometimes I wonder why I flip out. Why the simple things I could forgive, I still go all out. Why the humble ways that we should live, I don't carry out. I know the truth up in the message, but I won't give it out. And I can't say I'm even ashamed. On my birth certificate, but that ain't even my name. Wanna make it out the struggle, but I'm loving the game. Know the lies is in the truth, even if I could change, remain the class in society. I could gain the whole world and still a minority. Even rich has a face and they swearing it's sweet. With every loss is a gain, and they pointed at me.
So that's going to conclude our program for tonight. I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and thank you all for having us. And please give our panelists another round of applause. So if you have any more questions, everybody will be available as we walk out. Please feel free to stop any one of us and ask any questions you may have. And other than that, you all be safe and have a safe travel back home. And we love you. Thank you and good night.